Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining this talk and good morning. And thank you to Josh, to all the volunteers, and to everybody that's making this possible today. I wish that I was there with you in Seattle, but I'm located in Spain. So I guess this is the win of the situation is that we get to meet over the internet and have a conversation. And so before we start to talk about trust in security culture, who am I and why am I talking to you about this? Hi, I'm Annie. I work as a security culture manager at Auth0, a company that provides authentication and authorization services for developers. I also am the chapter lead of WOSEC Madrid, Women of Security, which is a nonprofit that aims to connect women that work in the cybersecurity field and share trainings, networking opportunities, and so on. You can find me on Twitter if you like. To continue our conversation, any questions, I will also be in the Discord channel. And so as a security culture manager, I work with people security full time, and I'm really passionate about it. And throughout this time, I've done a lot of research on different topics like behavioral economics, influence, negotiation. How can we change people's mindset? And so what I'm presenting to you today is like putting all of that research into a 50-minute presentation, mixing everything up and finding the core of the topic, essentially. So that's what we'll discuss today. And before we get started, I would like to ask you, what do you see when you look at this picture with your InfoSec lens? I know it's just people, essentially. But depending on your perspective, maybe you see a group of people that might be insider threats to the company. Or just like Werner Boggles, for instance, he might see idiots that just keep on clicking on the link over and over and over again. Or maybe you might see conflictive engineers that just keep on coding the same vulnerabilities over and over again, or maybe that don't fix them fast enough. Now, maybe that's what comes to mind when you look at this picture. Bugs, vulnerabilities, human error just waiting to happen. Now, let me tell you what I see, and especially after doing all of this research. What I see when I look at this picture is opportunity. Maybe the most important and the most under-tapped opportunity we have, because is it a ridiculous idea to say that if we get all of that people to think and behave securely, then we can make the internet a safer place in a scalable way? I don't think that's a crazy idea. I think it's something that we can achieve if we actually put ourselves into doing it. Now, why do we need to essentially take this opportunity and take advantage of this gold mine that people represent? Well, if I was with you in Seattle in person, I would ask you to raise your hand if you think that the cybersecurity industry and everything, if the internet is a safe place, if everything is fine. I think it's not. So we have breaches all over the place, security incidents happening all the time. I think we have a problem that we must fix. And the people side of things is something that we haven't really touched too much. Maybe we have some very boring and long trainings, but I think that people represent a gold mine of opportunity that can really make an impact and that can help make the internet safer. It just becomes a question of how. We have an opportunity, we know why we must take it. How do we do it? And so what I'm proposing today, then again, it's my perspective, it's a set of ideas that have come from a lot of research, but it's just a perspective and I would love to share it with you. So I would like to explain this with an example. Imagine we have company foo and we have company bar. And company foo, everything is foo. So here the security team is feared. People are afraid of us. We are the naysayers or the police. We just say no all the time. They might be afraid. They might feel that we blame them all the time. They don't care or want to hear anything about security at all. And whenever we try to do anything or to maybe put out a process, policy, something, it feels like fighting an uphill battle. Everything is just very, very difficult. And if we have a security incident or an issue in company foo, then we are not resilient. It costs a lot of money to fix, and it's a very dangerous situation. So essentially, we don't want to be in company foo, but I would dare to say that there are many company foos out there. Maybe this is how you feel. It's a toxic or a difficult work environment to be in. And we have company bar. Company bar is the opposite, completely opposite. Here we have collaboration, and the security team is seen. People are not afraid of us. They engage with us. They care about security and have a secure mindset. They grow and learn about security. They consider it's an important part of their professional selves and of their personal lives as well. They want to learn and engage with us. And here, instead of things being an uphill battle, it feels like going downhill instead. Everything is much easier, much simpler. There's less friction and overall issues. And so maybe in company bar, we will have a security incident. There will be security vulnerabilities for sure. I'm not saying that this can be completely eliminated. However, in company bar, I bet that we will be more resilient, that we will fix things faster, and everything will feel better overall. And I would dare to say that everybody should want to work at company bar, where security is valued, people care about it, we engage, and people engage with us. It's a much better environment to be in. And if you put these two companies side by side, and if you start to think at the core of the issue, what differentiates them, we can put that into a single word, and that's trust. Because ultimately, without trust, there is absolutely no room whatsoever for collaboration, for engagement and learning. There's no room for essentially anything that have anything to happen in this context. People will not engage with us the right way. They won't care about security. Trust is the one thing that changes company foo to become company bar. Now, trust, I think it might be a difficult word for us, a difficult concept, because we're used to think about zero trust and trust, but make sure that you always verify. Or every social engineering attack happens because people trust too easily. And we may even consider that it's a fluffy topic, hearts and rainbows. However, trust at the core, it's a skill, and it's actionable, it's measurable, and it leads to economic growth. So if you get good at inspiring trust and being a trustworthy person, then this ultimately leads to better results. And there are studies that show that companies or organizations that are high trust environments get things done 3 times faster and a lot cheaper, because when there's trust between two teams and between two orgs, then everything just happens faster and everything is just cheaper financially and time wise. So we want to get good at generating trust. And trust, at the core, if we study it, it starts with each of us individually, with the trust that we have in ourselves. And then after that, it goes to our relationships, the trust we have with every single one of our teammates and everyone else in the company. Then that goes into the org, and then that leads to market trust and trust in the society. But the one we care about the most for this topic and for this area is relationship trust and then organizational trust. So that's what we'll talk about today. And let's define it before we go into the security side of it. Let's understand trust a little bit better, because then again, it's not a fluffy topic, and we might think that it just has to do with kindness and honesty and integrity. However, when it comes to work settings, trust is a measure of two things: character and competence. So on the character side, you have integrity and you have intent. And on the competence side, you have capabilities and results. But let's explain those two things more. So character. The root of trust is your integrity. And this is your honesty, your congruence. Is what you say and what you think align with what you do. The courage you have to speak up for what you believe in the right way. And the humility you have to accept that you made a mistake, to learn from others, to accept other people's ideas. Then, after integrity, you have intent. And this is having a good purpose and a good motive for doing things, having the right agenda, not a hidden agenda, not seeking self um, win, but seeking to have a win-win for everybody involved, and generally caring for others. And ultimately, we have our behaviors. So our purpose translates to our motive, which goes into our agenda, and then this leads to what we actually do. And we have to think and providing the best for others. And after we have character, we must also have competence, because maybe you will trust somebody with high character and trustworthy character to watch over your pet, perhaps. But when it comes to work, we must also showcase capabilities and results. And on the capability side, we have our talent, whatever comes to us naturally. We also have our attitudes, our growth mindset, for example, the skills we have, and the fact that we're always learning, growing, sharing, all the knowledge we accumulate, and the style we have. And ultimately, at the peak of the tree of trust, we have our results. This is the performance we have, our past, our present, and an anticipated performance, and the methods that we use to achieve those results, meaning not stepping on anybody's toes, seeking to have win-win. And when it comes to results, it's not just tangible outcomes, but also learning is a good result. Supporting someone else's goals is also a good result. It's not just a metric, so to speak. So we have those two things. So, and now we understand that if somebody has integrity, has good intent, is a capable person that also has results, then that is the most trustworthy person like that you can be, and that leads to our relationships as well. And this is good for you overall in your personal life, in your professional life. These skills will just make you better. And social skills or soft skills, they don't go outdated. So this is just overall good for you, but it's also good for the security of the organization. In the domain of culture, security culture. So culture is essentially what people do when no one is watching. Is the behaviors, the values, the way that people just act on a company level. So first we have the company culture, and this is the overall organizational culture. This is the values of the company, even the way that people dress is part of the company culture. But within that culture, there is always a security culture. And this is the way that people think, behave, and the way that people react to security. And this is people in engineering, marketing, sales, everybody. Security is something that touches on everyone's role, essentially. So this, if you're a trustworthy person, and the security team is a trustworthy organization, this leads to a better overall security culture. And ultimately, culture drives behavior, not policies, not processes, but the culture of the company is what actually drives the way that people act in the organization. And if we want to take that opportunity we have discussed before, where we want developers to code securely, we want people not to click on phishing links or report issues, we want people to think and have a security mindset, it all comes down to culture, because that's what leads or that drives behaviors. So I really like this explanation about the different types of security cultures that a company might have. And any company won't have just a single type of one of these, but a mix of everything. And if we have a tight control and an internal focused company, we have a process culture. This is the company that just seeks to enforce policies. Everything is very rigid here. There's barely no room for innovation or creativity. Here we have everything standardized, everything is a policy, and there's not a lot of room for collaboration even. Now we have tight control, but if we focus externally, then we have a compliance culture or the checklist culture. Here we just want to pass audits essentially. And then again, we also have everything documented and there are many standards, but there's also very little room for collaboration as well. And it might feel very rigid as well. If we go to lose control, but we focus externally, we have the autonomy culture. And here the directive is to get results, just one result. I call this the ship it culture. And I think that a lot of startups might initially have an autonomy culture when they are growing and expanding. And here people have a lot of freedom to essentially innovate, and decisions are not made in a hierarchical way, but it's pushed out to everybody. And this can be a little bit of a chaos in a way when it comes to security. And then we have, when it goes to internal focus and a loose control, we have our trust culture. So that's what we now know what trust is. There is this we can have a security culture of trust. And here we focus on empowering people and on growing human relations. In a trust culture, people are knowledgeable, they are committed, they are accountable, and they're engaged. They consider that security is part of their job and part of what they do. And so in this culture, this is the most easiest way that we have to scale as an organization and to really make all the company more secure and ultimately make the internet safer. Now the question is, how do we generate a security culture of trust in our organization? It becomes a question of how again. So this is my proposal and what I've come up with after mixing all of this research I've done that considers different topics. So in order to have trust, I believe that we must have two pillars. On one side, the security organization in the company is a trustworthy organization. So we are people-centric. We consider that people represent this opportunity that we want to take, and we put a lot of effort into building that layer in our program. We seek to have change through influence rather than enforcing something, enforcing a policy or mandating people to change their mindset. We influence them instead. We seek mutual benefit. So we don't just consider security, but we want everybody to win and everybody to achieve their goals. And so that's on one side. And on the other side, we have our company allies. Everybody in the company becomes a security ally and they're knowledgeable. So they know about security between their needs and their domain. They are committed, they're engaged with us, and they feel responsible for security. I believe this is what we can consider having that security mindset that we wish we had a little bit more of. So we have these two pillars. How do we build them? So we want to have a security culture of trust, then each party must make trust deposits. So I like to see it this way. Essentially, imagine that you have this trust account in your organization, and every time you behave in a trustworthy manner, or you influence someone, or maybe a developer considers security, or somebody reports a phishing link, we make trust deposits essentially. Now, if you're a leader in the organization and you have a bigger sphere of influence, then you can make larger deposits. But that doesn't mean that individual contributors and or anybody essentially can help this to happen. Then again, trust starts with each of us. So we want to make as many deposits as we can and as constantly as possible. And here are some ideas how we can do that on our side. And if you want to change the world, we can start with ourselves. So first is the concept of win-win mindset. So here we consider, essentially the security teams considers the goals of everybody else in the company. So for instance, we want to help sales sell more in a secure way. We want engineers to be able to ship more, ship better, ship faster, securely. We want marketing to be able to do their job and in a secure way. So that means that we consider other people's and other orgs' goals and priorities as well. We don't just consider security and we think that everything must be secure without considering the needs, the constraints, the risks of everyone else in the org as well. We seek everybody to win. Essentially, this acknowledges the fact that within any company, we're all part of the same team. Maybe we play defense and everybody and someone else plays a goalie, but we all have the same goal. We should all seek to win together as much as possible. So shifting our mindset for just considering security and security at all cost to a win-win mindset. Then after that, we must, I believe, have strong customer service principles. So whenever somebody in any company, whenever somebody has a question or like, how do I enable MFA? How do I report a phishing email? How do I get a threat model or a risk assessment or report a vulnerability? Having a good customer service is key for the engagement that we need. And so these principles are absolutely key to have a good service. First is approachability. How is it to contact the security team? Do we have an email or a ticketing system, a channel in Slack? Can people send me a direct message maybe with that scale? What's the easiest way I can do to help people reach out to me? What's our tone of voice? Do we sound or do we sound like we want to help them, or are we hide from the request, for instance? And what's our reputation? So, for instance, if we are a security team and we don't participate in company-wide activities, or people don't see us in the office, in the Slack channels, if we have no visibility and the reputation that we have is negative, like the naysayers or the police, then this makes us less approachable. For instance, somebody might feel concerned or afraid to reach out to us, but we can improve that. After we are approachable, then we must show interest in the query and in the customer. So we create a safe space for the user. This means that no matter the question that's being asked, no matter anything at all, we show empathy and we show that we care. And then after that, we actively listen. So this is listening or reading the query to understand, not to reply, but just to understand the situation, the problem, what's happening. Not interrupting the person when they're talking and paying attention to what the user doesn't say. So sometimes the user might not express themselves the right way, and we might see something that they're not saying. And then interviewing. So asking questions to clarify, but not in an accusatory manner. And here, this is a lesson that I had to learn, and I sort of learned the hard way. I used to ask why do people a lot, because I believe in that we must always do things for a reason. So why do we have to do this and not that, for instance? However, that why in general, it makes people feel accused. So we can shift something like, why did you do this? To what caused this to happen? How did this happen? Shifting from why to what or how can really make a difference. And I invite you to try it out, maybe with a friend, your family, anybody. Try not using why, use it what or how instead, and the conversation will likely be more fluid and feel better on both sides. Then answering. So we always thank people for reaching out to us. For some people, it might be hard. Then again, we might feel a little bit intimidating. Maybe that person used to have had a bad experience before. So we make them feel good. We thank them, we praise them for contacting the security team. And then again, this is another tip that I strongly encourage you to try. Remove no problem and you're welcome, and change that for anytime, happy to help, and things like that. Things that show that you are genuinely happy for helping the person instead of making it look like you did them a favor or that they were actually bothering you. No, make it look that you are happy to help. So this, I invite you to try it out as well. And then following up. So we have our SLAs, we keep them, and if we said we were going to do something by X date, we do it or we manage that expectation. So we have customer service and principles, and we have an excellent customer service. Then we have communication, which is the key theme overall. First, we communicate with tact and with empathy, not with blame or not without caring. We genuinely care for the person and we communicate as tactfully as we can. We keep our commitments. So then again, we said we're going to do something, we do it. We set up a reminder, anything we need, but we do it when we said we were going to do, or we manage the expectation we created. Explaining why. I think this is absolutely key to gain adoption because people might not understand why they need to follow a control, process, a policy. So explain why does it exist? What problem is it solving? Why should they do it? Then they will have a far better understanding of the situation and they will adapt it faster and they will care more about it. Clarifying expectations. So if we expect developers to follow the secure coding guidelines, then we get an agreement from their leadership that this is what's going to happen. So we clarify expectations on both sides. If they want us to do something, we clarify that as well. Accountability is also key. So this means that we keep people accountable for the expectations and the commitments that were generated, that were approved. So this is something that we must do as well. And we keep ourselves accountable. And my personal favorite is no fear, no uncertainty, and no doubt. I feel that historically, security has always been something that has been sold to prevent something really bad from happening. And for some people, this can be very scary. And for instance, in trainings, we can remove all of that fear, all of that doubt, and change that for commitment, for why in a careful way, not to make anybody scared, but just to understand the situation. So no thought, essentially. And this directs the way that we communicate within ourselves and with everyone else in the company as well. And this vulnerability. So this is not related to technical vulnerabilities. This is personal vulnerability. For instance, a lot of people, especially non-technical people, might feel that the security team is absolutely perfect and we don't make any mistakes. We never fall for a scam or for phishing. Everything we code is secure 100% of the time. We might have that reputation of maybe a little bit of perfection, if we want to call it that way. So if we allow ourselves to say, hi, I made a mistake now or when I was starting, for instance, this can be key to help people open up with us. So the other day we had an event in the company I work at, and I told the company that I had almost had a security incident back in the quarantine. And I told this story with a bunch of memes. People laughed about it. And then after I finished that talk, a lot of people came to me and said, hi, I made a mistake. Hi, I almost got scammed in the mall the other day. What should I do? My wife gave my credit card details to a scammer. What should I do? And so a lot of people allow themselves to feel vulnerable with me because I took that initial step. And that made me look, and everyone else in the team as well, made us look more approachable. And we need to create that sense, that safe space, because sometimes falling for a phishing scam, coding a vulnerability, or any security situation that might happen can be just essentially a very stressful experience. So then again, if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we help people feel a lot safer as well. And ultimately, all of this comes down to relationships, empathy, and caring for everybody in the organization, caring for everybody to have not only a safe experience online for their personal lives, but also that their actions lead to a more safer space for our companies as well. So that's on our side. What about their side? How do we help them become the allies we need to have this culture of trust? And the core of the matter is changing the behavior. Now you will have in your company, you likely already have allies that care about security, that know about it, are committed and engaged, but maybe a lot of people doesn't have that yet. So we must help them change their behavior. And here I want to bring up what the FBI does, and especially in the hostage negotiation team. There's a great book about it. So back in the 90s, the FBI was going through a very difficult time. They were essentially losing all negotiations, and this led to a lot of loss of lives. And so the director, back in 1994, the FBI director assembled a special team whose only job was to figure out what's wrong with the way that we negotiate, and how can we negotiate in a way that actually changes the behavior of the criminal on site and helps us save lives. And this was a special unit that had people that dealt with crisis management, incident response, behavioral sciences, psychology, anything that was needed to fix this problem. And so this team went and did a lot of research, a lot of experimentation, a lot of learning. They contacted Harvard, they contacted the best minds they could. And one of the things they found was the research that was done back in the 80s, a few years before, by Daniel Kahneman, that said that essentially people are irrational beings. So back then in the 80s, the economic sciences thought that people do things because it's the right thing to do, because it's cheaper, because it's rationally better. But in reality, what was found is that we do things because of how they feel. So we feel before we think. And feeling is a way of thinking. And the way Kahneman explains it is that we have system one, which is the emotional, irrational beast side of our minds. And we have system two, which is the logical, rational side of our minds. And whenever something happens, question, and a stimulus in the environment, we first process this through system one, and then that response informs our system two response. So this means that if we want to change the behavior of anybody, a criminal, a terrorist, a person, then we first must appeal to emotion rather than to rational thinking. And this is the mistake that the FBI was making before, because they used to see negotiation as a problem solving thing, fully rational, and that's why it didn't work. A hostage situation was extremely emotional, and essentially everything else is as well. And so after they found this research, they came up with what is today called the FBI Stairway Model for behavior change. And so whenever there's a hostage negotiation, no matter the type, no matter how dangerous, an expert negotiator from the FBI goes and essentially establishes trust with the criminal. And first, the first thing that they do is that they actively listen to them. They want to understand why they're doing what they're doing without asking them why, using what and how questions. They want to make the criminal feel heard first, then they employ what they call tactical empathy, which is like empathy on steroids. They mirror what the other person is feeling, they label it, they manage to understand the criminal as much as possible. They build rapport. They become not friends, but they have this established relationship. After they have all of this, they influence the behavior of the criminal to get them to see things as they see it. And this ultimately leads to behavior change. The reason why I'm bringing this up in this talk is because this showcases that establishing trust, being able to be perceived as a trustworthy person, an organization, can ultimately lead to behavior change. And if this works with hostage and crisis, this way with terrorists and with criminals, then we can use this to get anybody to adopt our secure coding guidelines, to enable MFA to care about security. We can change that perception and those behaviors by establishing and leveraging trust with people. So it's a skill. Then again, it's actionable, it's measurable, and it works in the field and in general. And it goes back to listening, to empathy, building rapport and relationships, influencing instead of mandating change, and then ultimately using those techniques to change the behavior. So let's say that we manage to change the behavior of the person. They now accept security, they care about it, it's part of them. So now we want to make it part of their identity. So this means that they believe in security in a way. So we talk in their language. That means that whenever we explain a topic, we don't use this complicated jargon we have. We don't talk to sales and marketing the same way we talk with engineering. We help them understand our message. We explain how does it benefit them in their professional lives, in their personal lives, because ultimately people do things for their reasons. That's just the way it is. And we use intrinsic motivation, so purpose, mastery, and autonomy as much as we can. And after this it becomes part of their identity. Now, what happens when we change the person behavior? It's part of their identity. They care as much as they can care about security. What happens if their leadership does not value this? So executives, directors, leaders must also be allies. So they might have competing priorities. Say that security is not prioritized from a project management perspective, and then they literally can do anything. What are the praise behaviors? So is there a focus on shipping, or is there a focus on shipping securely? Is security considered a quality metric in the organization? And what support do they have? Do they have the time they need to learn security, the learning resources, the learning opportunities, the support they need overall? Because security is not simple, I would dare say, and we need to give people the space to adopt it, to learn about it, to interact with it. And if they're leaders, managers, program managers, executive directors, if they don't value security, then we must start at the top with that behavior change to help individual contributors behave securely as well. And now, say that we change behavior, people care about security, it's part of their identities. We adapt our messages to their language, something that they can understand, and this is actually valued by the leadership in the company. Now we enhance their capabilities. So this means training on a constant basis, not just 1 hour annual training that we would dislike ourselves. No, this is a fun, engaging training that happens multiple times a year. We can have mentorship as well. Grab people from the security team and do one-on-ones or do one-on-manys, lunch and learns. Ask me anything can be very useful. Maybe we can grab leaders from the security organization to talk with people. And what do they think? We provide all the resources they need: blogs, books, video trainings, conferences, even video, YouTube talks, anything that might be needed. And we have focus groups. Maybe we have a team of people that's working on completing X certification. We have our security champions with a special learning path, security ambassadors with another learning path. We do our best to help everyone in the company grow in their security journey throughout the year on a permanent basis. And so we have all of this, but at the same time, I want to make a not a warning, but also add this as well. So we want to extend trust. We see that trust is the one thing that changes company full to become company bar. It's a way that we can leverage people and take the opportunity they represent to make the internet safer. But at the same time, we have to extend trust in a smart way with judgment. This doesn't mean that we extend trust blindly, that we just trust everybody and trust that everybody will define and have no controls. No, we must always have judgment as well. So this is like adding another layer in our security program. We still have our detection and response, our logging, our zero trust mechanisms, our processes, policies. We still have all of this. What I mean by all of these talks and all of these behaviors is that we have a high propensity to trust. That means that we don't go around without extending trust to anybody or distrusting every single person we see, thinking that they're just human error waiting to happen. That's what I mean by this. We can change our perspective we have on people to help them become the best they can be and to turn them into another layer in our security program with judgment in a smart way. So with this, we have these two pillars to wrap things up. We, on one side, the security organization is trustworthy, it's people-centric, we influence people, we seek mutual benefit, so we want win-win mindset. On another side, we have everyone else in the company who are allies to the security program. They are knowledgeable because we've trained them with everything they need. They are committed because we changed their behaviors, we changed their perspective, and security is part of their identity. They're engaged because we're not scary, we're not intimidating. We're fun, we are engaging, we are seen, we participate, we're part of the company. And they are responsible because they care about security and they also have all the support they need from their management chain. And with these two things and all the things we can add on top of this, I believe that we can have a security culture of trust that actually drives behavior and makes the internet safer. And so hopefully, if this happens, then maybe next time you see this picture, maybe you might not see insider threats and phishing people that click on phishing links or engineers that are conflicting and that code insecurely that don't fix anything. You see trouble overall. Hopefully, if this happens, that's not what you see. You see an opportunity that was taken, and you see people that you trust that also trust you back. And with this, a security culture of trust that I strongly believe has the potential and the capability to make the internet safer in a scalable, in a humane way. And with that, thank you very much.